I'm really happy to moderate this session because I think it's quite an important one. So when we talk about doing all our work, actually an essential part of it is multi-stakeholder engagement, but we'll explore a little bit today about what that means. Firstly, I think we, of course, all acknowledge that our most important stakeholder in whatever we do is our recipients or the people that we seek to support. So hopefully we get to hear about how do we meaningfully engage with them as stakeholders, right? To hear their issues, what are the kind of things they face, and how can we also bring in such stakeholders as part of the plan towards the betterment of their own lives through the lens of SDGs. So hopefully we'll hear this, some of that example. Secondly, I think multi-stakeholder engagement is very important because quite often a lot of us in our enthusiasm to work on our work, we tend to work in silos. So multi-stakeholder engagements are really important for us to leverage on each other's expertise for a shared outcome. So this is, we'll see some examples as well on how different multi-stakeholders have come together with a common outcome, hopefully. And hopefully we can delve a little bit more about that because it's important to understand each stakeholder because one, they bring their own expertise and their own experience, and we don't want things to overlap as well. So I'm also, as one of the newest foundation in the country contributing to the SDGs, I'm very pleased that Datuk Dennison has engaged meaningfully with the foundation through APPGM to also have partners, friends of the SDGs, so that all of us can share our work, and also then we minimize overlapping, which means we fully utilize all the resources that we have together, right? So there's no wastage as well, and also then we can probably scale and replicate our work better as well. Lastly, I think what's quite important, which I don't really hear when we talk about multi-stakeholder engagements, is who plays the convener for that? Because it's quite important as well about who plays the convener. So again, I think APPGM plays a very good convener for certain things, which we'll share. I know because I used to be Yayasan Hasanah also plays that role. And I'm sure we'll hear some other examples, hopefully on, you can also play a convener through a digital platform for funding. So many different ways. And that convening power is very important because some stakeholders may not know how to engage with other stakeholders, so a lot of us have to play that convening role. So without much further ado, let me begin with this first speaker. We'll start with ladies first, to my left. So we'll start with Aditi Malhotra. She's from Yayasan Hasanah, and she'll be speaking about funding and support to enable CSO roles for community transformation. Some examples from the organization. Thank you. Please go ahead, Aditi. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I'm Aditi, and I am part of an organization called Yayasan Hasanah. And I'm going to be here sharing a bit about what the organization is and why, as Anita very rightly pointed out, why a convening function is core to us as a grant maker. So Hasanah was founded in 2015, and we are a foundation of Khazanah Nasional. Khazanah Nasional is the sovereign wealth fund of the government of Malaysia. And we were essentially created to value distribute the value that was created at the sovereign fund level, and we were chartered as a national institution to be able to bring impact to environment as social communities. And over a period of time, we have been able to distribute over 1 billion ringgit of funding through our programs. We've had over 400 partners. Over 400 projects, about 350 plus partners, and we've been able to reach over 2 million persons within Malaysia across the range of programs that we do, and we work largely within the 5 impact areas. As you see, we focus on education, where we focus on mental health and school leadership. Those are 2 important areas of intervention that we plan to focus on. We will look at community development, where we look at community empowerment and community livelihood, both interrelated and equally important. Then environment, where we are looking at developing a sustainable development model to be able to bring more non-renewable energy and revenue generation methods to the governments, states, and as well as arts and public spaces, and knowledge. Arts and public spaces, we focus on preservation of textiles and also supporting our artisans from a livelihood perspective. And one of the key things is Hasana feels what is part of our identity is we look at ourselves as not just any funder, and we are extremely conscious of the fact that we feel that we are a convener, a collaborator, and catalyst for change. And as I present, you will be able to see some of the examples that are reflected through our community engagement. So of course, we are a fund maker. A lot of the implementation, most of the implementation is done by our partners, who we call our grantees. So our grantees, who we call our partners. And here it's just a snapshot of the lives we've impacted across nationwide, and we look at different target groups. We don't just look at one target group, and this has been something that we've learned over a period of time through our grant funding, that when you look at one community, a community needs to be viewed holistically. There are several different elements and issues that come to play. So as I said, when we've looked at students, we've looked at persons, we've looked at youth, we look at teachers. Even over the last few years, we focused a lot on refugees, children through multi-stakeholder programs, Orang Asli, who are tribal people, schools, artisans, persons with disabilities, and even fauna over the last few years. And I think one of the most important things that I wanted to share is a lot of the work that we do, we look at funding and capacity development as enablers. And the enablers at the core of all of this is community. So a lot of the programs that we do and we fund, we try as far as possible for it to be community-led. So it's, as I said, so if you're funding a program, and this is something that we realized over a period of time. Technology is nobody's friend. So I think, as I was saying, over a period of time, we started, when we set up, and over the last few years, that has been our realization. We typically, yes, funded projects that we thought were only community development or only environment or only arts and public spaces, but there are these interlinkages that over a period of time we have explored, and that has kind of helped us realize that as an organization, as a funding organization, collaboration is an equally important function, and therefore we are able to help different organizations or NGOs on the ground to collaborate with each other. Some of them work on similar communities but have never spoken with each other. And that's a key learning for us. So we feel that a lot of the funding that is done on ground, communities are at the center. And the projects are designed, are community-led as far as possible. They're community-led. Of course, there are certain directions that we bring in, but we are completely of the view that if a project is not generated from the needs of the community, it's not going to be able to see fruition. So therefore, I think what we wanted to put here is to say it's not just important to just be a fund maker. It's also important to look at the other element, which is capacity development, which is something that we are very conscious of. We feel that at least the organizations in Malaysia really require capacity development as importantly as funding. And this transcends organizational capacities on ground, implementation capacities, and that has to be an equally important element in envisioning any kind of change that we want to see on ground. So the SDGs, I mean, the way we look at SDGs, like I said, we are a mirror of our partners. We have just started our SDG journey. We are not very advanced on it. So a lot of the programming is not really SDG centric. But I think in hindsight, what we've been able to see is at some point in time, we are seeing that our partners are attuning to SDGs. So that's something that we're now, in retrospectively, trying to map our programs against where we see in the SDGs. But it is a fact that we didn't begin consciously from being directed by SDGs. But that's something that we've learned, and we've tried to now incorporate that across our programs. I think I want to just share a few different examples that we've implemented on ground. And the first example is what we call the community development approach, and Anita was very intrinsic in being able to help us develop that. So what we wanted to achieve was a multi-dimensional approach to stakeholder engagement. So like I said, we began with community development and we went into a community or a PPR or an urban housing space that in Malaysia called Lembah Subang. It's not, again, not very far from here. But we went with the idea of livelihoods. And over a period of time, engaging with communities, we realized it's not just what it seems it is. They required issues of nutrition, there were issues of community mental health, we required family care for children. And then that kind of prompted us to have one anchor partner on ground, but also bring in different expertise. And that was an important learning for us to say that we will be able to consciously engage with different stakeholders, different institutions who will bring value to a community. And over a period of time, it has really helped so it has really helped the community see the value of coming together, of collectivizing, even though they thought that by themselves they could become an entrepreneur, but when you bring them together as a collective, that led to a different kind of learning. So the first change, I mean, we start through our entrepreneurship program, we saw that women were able to develop skills, they were able to market, they were able to run a coaching business, and similar to what Kirtana was saying, if you give them the tools, we've realized they can really be entrepreneurs themselves. The idea is to be able to build capacities, know where the tools need to be given. And the other aspect is community leadership. So we realized women were natural leaders. They just needed a bit of coaxing, they just needed a bit of mentoring to be able to then get them to take up certain formal, informal positions within the communities and be the champions for their own social change. The other example that I wanted to share was of a program that we did in Pahang, in the state of Pahang. The organization was Yayasan Kaijandan, Pembangunan and Masyarakat. So here we entered largely with the idea of working with rural or the Orang Asli communities. And the idea, it began as an environmental kind of self-sustainability project. But over a period of time, we realized that we were able to bring together communities within the same geographic area who had the similar needs. And that kind of led to a more community empowerment where they thought that what was happening in, say, other villages, they could also emulate. And that over a period of time led to a different kind of positive transformation within the Orang Asli community itself. And it's great challenges to work with the communities. And it has not only led to soil regeneration and environmental and perhaps environmental degeneration, but at the same time, it also helped improve livelihoods through community cohesion, which is something, again, we didn't go with this, but because we were able to enter the target group through a certain kind of intervention, environmental intervention, over a period of time, we saw differing results. And that, of course, you have to trust your partner, you have to trust what they bring to it, and how you can weave different institutions together. So I think over a period of time, it has led to tremendous success for the community. We've been able to train farmers on farming. It has led to reduce GHG emissions, improving soil health. At the same time, they've been able to market, they've been able to build brand of their organic produce, which they call OA Organic, and it's sold in good chains within the state. The last example here is of an organization called Forever Sabah. Again, I think the important point that I'm trying to make here is the fact that we need to listen more. And as a funder, we've realized funders are not famous for listening, but we've realized that if you listen more to the communities, you see the change that they want to bring in, and they take ownership for that change. So we entered Sabah with Forever Sabah, and the idea was to be able to carry out a diversified and equitable circular economy model to be able to help produce heirloom rice that they thought they were losing. And our idea was to be able to help them with livelihoods and marketing. But on the other hand, the unintended consequence of success was that over a period of time, the community said we'd rather not sell, but eat that rice. And that was an important learning, because in times of COVID, you realize that self-security food security is an important facet that the communities need to realize and build on, so that we don't see starvation and other issues of nutrition within the communities and children. So I think that's that. And I think what I wanted to also share here is I lead this bit of social impact measurement. What I think we've learned as Hasana is, you call it SDGs, we call it any framework or any kind of work that we want to do, it has to be rooted in certain milestones that and an impact framework, what we call the impact framework. And that's important because it brings a sense of accountability of the communities to themselves. And for us, the learning, unlearning, and relearning aspect is very important because we think it's important to adapt. It's important to learn, it's important to adapt, and as funders, we feel we need to give that flexibility to our partners. And that's something that we've also kind of built on. And the idea of evidence and knowledge management is key, is really key to our learning, because whatever projects we implement, of course now we are not able to spend as much time on learning as we should, given the breadth of our work and the impact. But at the same time, I think we are very conscious of the fact that the entire aspect of social impact measurement and social impact measurement has to be key into assessing any form of frameworks on ground, be it the SDGs, be it anything that we want to drive for success through our partners. And it has to be led from the ground. We consider social impact to be able to a framework where you are picking up just the right levers to be able to have conversations, to be able to understand what is the change that we need to bring on ground, and how do we work towards that. So to really break the big social impact and social change questions for us into something that's more tangible, that's more manageable. Yeah, I think what I'm going to leave the room with is just an example. I'm going to be playing a video, and again, like I've been saying, so we enter with one intention, but we leave with a different kind of unintended impact. And this is another example of how we thought. So the Malaysian tigers, like other parts of the, in other parts of the world, Malaysian tiger is endangered, and we entered with the idea of being able to safeguard the Malaysian tigers. And the way we did it is we use the Orang Asli, or the people of the forest, or the people of the land who are from there, as champions to be able to, we train them on ground, who were then, who used to then be in forests to be able to then put together a squad, if I can put it like that. And that's how we were able to also help generate livelihoods as much as be able to put together a campaign to save the tigers.
So the Malayan tiger is critically endangered in Malaysia now, with less than 150 left in the wild. So if we don't do anything, the Malayan tiger will go extinct.
Selamat pagi, kita akan di rondaan. Jadi harap selamat masuk dan selamat pulang.
If they have those three items, food, habitat, and protection, they will and can come back. And that's already been proven in countries like India and Nepal, where tiger numbers have doubled even. RIMA was determined to help solve the problem. And for us, the most important thing that tigers needed was protection from poachers in the rainforest. In terms of impact, it will take a while before we see if tiger numbers bounce back. But we're already seeing changes here in Royal Belum. For example, the number of snares that have been found in the rainforest here has probably dropped by 90 to 95% already. And snares, of course, is the biggest threat to tigers.
Jalan.
Nama saya Talib. Tempat tinggal saya Kampung Sungai Kija. Tugas untuk kita masuk dalam hutan, sebelum masuk kita bagi anggota keadaan semua baik. Sebelum kita ronda, kita cek barang. Ada bateri GPS, kamera, memori ke penuh ke atau kurang. Macam tu kita cek. Tapi sekarang ni perubahan saya tengok semakin sikit naik. Ada saya bantu warga. Pendapatan sekarang ni dah bolehlah banyak.
Yayasan Hasanah has been a great partner for Rimau. We started off with 16 patrollers here in Royal Belum, but today we have 46 patrollers in 3 landscapes, Royal Belum, Amanjaya, and also in Kolbu, creating a huge landscape for tigers.
As it is one of the priority landscape for Yayasan Hasanah in demonstrating sustainable development. We are looking to connect the forest landscapes, and by supporting such a project allows us to demonstrate with evidence that the work that we're carrying out is supporting the species conservation on the ground.
So protecting the Harimau Malaya is absolutely critical and is a responsibility of all Malaysians to make sure that it continues to exist in our rainforests.
Yeah, so I just wanted to leave you with that, to say we enter with one intention, but with community patrollers who were largely the Orangasli, we have also been able to, over a period of time, help generate livelihoods and to let them see this as an equally important profession to invest in safeguarding the forests as well as the tigers. Thanks so much.
So thank you very much for that, Aditi. I think for me, the 2 key takeaways is that even as a donor, donors also play quite an important role in influencing stakeholder engagement. So one of the things that Aditi didn't share, but because I know this, is that even donors, it's quite important for donors as stakeholders to come together as well and see what they're doing. So quite a few, I think, that Hasanah initiated was for those supporting tiger conservation to come together and share the work. Because when you talk about some work like conservation of tiger, where they roam and where they go is quite important as patrolling as well. You can't have just one donor working on that and funding when there's a long stretch of conservation that you need to do. So that's quite important. And I think the other key takeaway that's quite important that we should think about is that stakeholder engagement is never static. Yeah. So it's not like you engage in the first year of your work and then it stops there with the same people. It evolves over time. We heard some examples even from the previous panel, is that as you go along in your work and you expand, you find out more, then you have to bring in different stakeholders as well. Right, without further ado, let me move on to the next session. I will invite Mr. Rajan Samuel, the only person that doesn't have an A in the panel, by the way. The rest of us, I realize, whose name starts with A, except for yourself. So please go ahead, Rajan Samuel, and share your experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Good afternoon to all of you, and I bring greetings from India. Before I skim through my presentation, I've got 3 questions for you. In the last 1 week, how many payments have you made, through your wallet? Any digital payments that you have made, using your cell phone or wallet? How many? Average? How many? 5, 6? Yeah? 5, 6? Okay, my second question. How many of you have donated money to a charity in the last 1 year? That means you have made an online donation. It could be offline as well. Wow, that's almost 50%. And my third question is, is it online donation or offline donation? Online? Offline? Yeah, you would have given a check. That's called offline, right? My last question is, all of us give. Either you are giving to a religious organization, to a mosque, to a temple or a church. We also give to charity. How many of you have given to a religious institution the last 1 week or 2 months? Yeah, 30%. To charity? Yeah, thank you. So my name is Rajan Samuel and I work for Crowdera. And I've spent almost 40 years and I've done work in almost 35 countries around the world. And I've done microfinance, I've done social finance, social enterprises, I've done housing finance. And now I've embarked on a very, very interesting journey. And I believe that the digital technology can glue everything. The important thing about the technology is that you could be sitting right here in Kuala Lumpur and help a guy in the US who's living in Dallas, Texas, asking him to raise money for Kavita, who is a tribal girl living in Chennai. I think that's the power of technology. You don't need to move. All we have to do is one is that you need to have the conviction that yes, we can do it. Number two is that we need to believe in whatever we do. And I firmly believe that through the digital platform, we can transform communities. And we are really talking about transforming the communities. In Malaysia, they call it B40. And in India, we talk about people living below the poverty line. You also have the poor in the US and in other countries. So in my presentation, let's go to the next slide, please. So in the last 10 years, I think we have done more than 23,000 campaigns. So the interesting thing about using online platform, we talk about crowdfunding or syndicate funding. It has to be a campaign-driven. When you talk about a campaign-driven, A, you have to have a theme. B, you need to have a start date. You need to have an end date. And you need to have a goal, right? You need to, I want to raise $100,000 in order to empower, 10,000 orang aslis in Malaysia. So you need to have a clear blueprint before you can launch a campaign. So we'll talk about, understanding the social and solidarity economy. I want to thank Dr. Dennison for inviting me, and also Dr. Ben. So I've done this paper, and I'm sure it is available. It's available, right? I think there's a code, and I want you to download this, my paper, because we have captured all the, the SDG goals, how a campaign is aligned, how SSC principles are aligned. And we talk about what are the recommendations that we have for the SSC. I think tomorrow we have a meeting. And we'll talk about the digital framework for transforming the SSC institutions. And, I want to go live on a campaign that we launched recently so that, you're able to understand, what I'm talking about. Yeah, so with that, let's move to the next slide, please. So I think what is important, whether it is alignment with SSC principles or whether it is aligned with the SDG goals. Now, if you look at the last report produced by Charity Aid Foundation, it's very interesting. I want you to go through this report. It's available online. It talks about the World Giving Index. Imagine if, which is the first country which really gives, any guesses around the world? The top country in the world which gives money and time and effort and energy to others. Can you guess which country is that? Yeah? Anybody? Indonesia. People are here. You may think US. I think US stands 5th in the list. Unfortunately, India is the 43rd, level, and then we have Malaysia, which is in 31. And what is interesting about this statistics is that 72% of the world population have given in 2023 to 4 billion people not knowing who they are. I think that's the power of digital technology, right? So you're sitting here and helping Kavita, who's in India, or you're sitting in India and helping someone, orang asli, family, right? So another interesting findings about this is also that, many of them want to give more. So one thing I've learned in crowdfunding or syndicate funding is that, you want to make one donation. And how many of you have done a second donation or third donation? Dr. Ben? How many? More than one, right? So I think, again, what is important, lesson learned in digital platform is that when you give, you want something in return. You need a report. You want to know what, the people have done with your money. And, my experience, again, I've been doing this for quite some time, crowdfunding, is that 80% of donors can be converted from one-time giving to monthly giving, 80%. But how will the conversion happen? Number one, you need to give back, the report. It's Kavita, and they want to know what is Kavita's story, how she was before, and what you have done, with the money that you're given. So I think, this is possible. Let's move to the next slide, please. So, all of us are familiar with SSC principles, and, so it encompasses organizations and enterprise based on cooperation, mutualism, democracy, and social purpose. And the SSC focus on principles such as engaging in economic activity. I think we'll look at it, prioritizing people over capital, and contributing to decent work and the SDGs. Yeah, let's move to the next slide, please. So I think this is important. what we have done, Crowder has done in the last decade, we have raised more than $100 million, through, fundraising. That's a mandate for different charities and, different campaigns. 1 million lives plus have been impacted through these funds that you have raised. And, recently I visited a family in Hyderabad. And, the mother was a sex worker. And, through an organization in Hyderabad, she was, rehabilitated. And, she never went to school. And today, the daughter is gone to the college, and she graduated, and she's working today. And it's because of people like you who have supported this organization. I think that's I'm sure, I'm preaching to the choir, all of you have done that. But that's the power of digital technology. You can be sitting anywhere. Of course, if you look at the users, I think it's more than 100 Ks. And, we have footprints in more than 100 countries. And the next thing that I want to talk about is 3,500 plus nonprofits have used our platform. And, so again, it's from having a digital identity to you can have a full stack solution where you're sitting in Malaysia, you can raise money in the US or from UK. I think that's a power of, again, a digital platform. So I think I'll pause here and let's go to a live campaign. Now, we have launched this campaign for Akshaya Patra. So the first slide, first link, please. Yeah. Now, Akshaya Patra, how many of you know Akshaya Patra in India? It's one of the largest, feeding program in the world. They feed 2 million kids every day. Exactly at 12 in the noon, you will have a hot meal and nutritional meal given to the kids. 2 million. I think they want to increase it by 5 million by 2025. So we have launched a campaign. It's powered by Crowdera. This is Akshaya Patra Foundation. I want you to read the youth report also. I think yesterday I made a comment on it. According to the World Report, Youth Report 2020, this is by United Nations, there are 1.2 billion young people aged between 50 to 24, accounting to 60% of the global population. So Akshaya Patra, so launched a campaign called Future Shapers. And the objective of this campaign is to motivate young people to raise money for Akshaya Patra. Now, these are kids who are raising money, not knowing who's going to get the benefit of the funds that they raise. Let's go down. And these are the campaigns, So let's click that Feeding Hungry Minds. These are the third one, please. So the target is 150,000 Indian rupees. And I want you to listen to this, the student, a school student who was actually one of the fundraisers for.
I know how hard it is to focus on your studies on an empty stomach. Yet millions of students in India are forced to do just this as they come from underprivileged backgrounds where the family cannot even afford 1 square meal. The government's midday meal program, made possible by Akshaya Patra's efforts, is honestly one of the only reasons that these students come to school. By contributing just 1,500 rupees, you could feed a child for the entire year. That is one child who goes on to become a future leader, a doctor, engineer, or so much more, and gets to unlock the full potential. So please, go click on the link and contribute as much as you can. With just 1,500 rupees, you could be changing a life.
Yeah, 1,500 rupees is 85 Malaysian ringgit. And so our target is 1,150,000 rupees, and she's got 30 donors. And the last thing, if you can go down to Akshaya Patra, the next one, yeah. The profile with the Indian map. Yeah, so this is, go down. Currently, this one. I think this talks about how many, 20,000 plus schools, over 2 million children, 67 kitchens they have. They have factories to make chapati, and they're currently covering 15 states. So what Akshaya Patra is trying to do is, these are all affluent students from IB schools, international schools, ICSE schools, and creating that kind of a culture that we need to take care of others. Imagine, she's a student, she's trying to raise 1,500 in order to feed another child from a government school. I think that's what we are trying to do. I hope India would move from where it is in terms of giving index to another level. I think I'll take 2 more minutes. And let's go back to the deck. So what we are trying to do is that, in India there are 3.5 million NGOs and less than 10% have digital identity. What is digital identity is that you need to have a robust the slide deck, please, yeah. You need to have, a robust website to start with. The moment you talk about digital technology, there are a lot of things that kicks in. We can, connect many dots. One is accountability. The second one is transparency. Third one is compliance, because people may think that, no, what about money laundering, et cetera, et cetera. This is a well-regulated, platform. We are registered in Singapore. We have a presence in the US. I manage all the operations, but I operate from India. So this is a highly regulated sector, both in India, US, and in Singapore. And, if you look at what are the gaps and deficiencies, I'll just take a few minutes. Let's go to the next slide. These are our critical recommendations. I think I'll be talking more in detail tomorrow. So every SSC member should have a unique and verifiable online website in order to showcase the vision, mission, values, activities, etc., etc. See, credibility is very important in online funding. So if I ask you tomorrow, Dr. Dennison is going to endorse an organization in Malaysia, will you donate to that organization? How many of you will donate to that organization? I'm sure. Yeah, because you don't know who's the managing director, you don't know who the beneficiaries are, but you know who Dr. Dennison is, his credibility, the values that he believes in. So I think it's important to have that kind of an identity, and each campaign that you launch needs to reflect and promote all the principles, whether SSC principles or SDG goals. And of course, we are talking about a systematic approach, right from digital identity. You can move all the way to having a fund kind of a base platform where you're not only talking about mobilizing grants, we can also talk about mobilizing equity and debt. I think something that Aditi spoke about. So I think the sky is the limit, using the digital technology, but I think it all has to begin somewhere. And we believe that every charity around the world should have a digital identity. The moment you have a digital identity, I think everything will fall in place: accountability, transparency, and compliance. And then, I think, you should be, and I mean, if you look at the footfall, one of the, data that I was looking at, if you have 1,000 people visiting your website, at least 30% of them should become your donors. That means your website has to be very robust. It needs to have all the data, impact stories, etc., etc. So we talk about 30%. So the next 5 years, we are trying to see how can we convert that 30% to 50%. That means for 1,000 visitors on your website, 500 should become your donors. And out of 500, 250 should become your monthly givers. I think that's a challenge. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to take on questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajan. So again, some key takeaways from that session. Apparently, you don't have to move to contribute globally, so that's good to know. You can be sitting anywhere to contribute globally. But more importantly, again, when you're going back to the theme of stakeholder engagement, accountability is very important for stakeholder engagement, right? So quite a lot of times when some of us get invited to meetings and engagements, and we don't get the full loop of what happened from that engagement, then we'll just say that it's all talk. So the accountability, or you can't kind of raise that trust on what you're trying to do. So accountability means also reporting back to who you engage with. So that's quite critical, depending on who your stakeholders are. So without wasting further time, let me invite Anthony Tan to then share experience with APBGM on their stakeholder engagements. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Can I invite you to repeat something with me? Leaving? No. Hey, I haven't given you the words. Leaving? No one? Behind. There's a reason why I'm saying this, because I'm attempting to squeeze many years of history into 15 minutes. And I pray to God that I do not leave anyone behind. So, next please. In the beginning, in 2015, civil society organizations in Malaysia endorsed Agenda 2030 by forming a coalition Under the umbrella of the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, about 50 organizations came from different areas of public interest while having a shared goal of achieving the SDGs by 2030. 4 years later, the Speaker of Dewan Rakyat mooted the idea of the formation of the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia, or APPGM, based on the British Parliament's APPG. The Speaker's main motivation being to encourage bipartisan cooperation between government and opposition members of Parliament. The then Minister of Law and Parliamentary Affairs proposed the formation of the APPGM to the House on 17 October 2019, and the APPGM SDG became the first APPGM to be registered. The main difference between the APPGM and a Parliamentary Select Committee, or PSC, is the APPGM committee is made up of volunteers, whereas the membership of a PSC is nominated by their political parties. Correct, Senator? Correct, okay. Next, please. The initial players, as the name All Party suggests, the very nature of the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on SDGs committee is a representation from both government and opposition. In its rules and regulations, it is made mandatory that the chairman of the committee must be from the government backbench, while the deputy chairman is from the opposition. This is the original APPGM SDG committee. Next. This is the original APPGM secretariat, and all of them were volunteers. Next. I got the word next here, so it's made easier. The basic idea of a bipartisan approach to the sustainable development caught the attention of the National Budget Director, and this set in motion a firm allocation specified in the 2020 budget speech. In early 2020, the Society for Promotion of Sustainable Development Goals, or Persatuan Promosi Maklumat Pembangunan Lestari, the acronym is PPMPL, was established under the Registrar of Societies and became the legal entity representing the APPGM SDG Secretariat to MOF, Parliament, and the Economic Planning Unit. The first registered members of PPMPL mainly came from the APPGM SDG Secretariat team, and these are the committee members. Next. COVID-19 and the change in government. COVID-19 started to rear its ugly self in the beginning of 2020. Some rural and indigenous peoples, communities refused to allow the research teams to visit their localities. And a change of government at the federal level took place in late February 2020, initiated by what is now known as the Sheraton Move. Next. The UN country representative and UN agencies, Mr. Stefan Presner, the then UN resident coordinator for Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam, was the link between APPGM SDG and UN agencies, particularly UNDP. Ms. Karima El Khoury, who was appointed resident coordinator in August 2021, upon the departure of Mr. Stefan. Next. The first change in committee membership. The sudden change in Parliament triggered a change of leadership in the APPGM SDG committee. With the switching of seats between the government and opposition, 5 of the 10 committee members who had been elevated to the post of minister or deputy minister. YB Dato Sri Haja Nancy Shukri vacated her position as deputy chairman, as she had been named as the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture. YB Puan Maria Chin Abdullah moved from chairman to the position of deputy chair, and YB Dato Sri Rohani Abdul Karim kindly accepted the position as the new chairperson. The post of secretary and treasurer and the rest of the committee remain intact. Next. We recognize the contributions of APPGM SDG committee members in their active promotion of SDGs in parliamentary debates at local events, national conferences, and international fora. The chairperson was active in the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, High-Level Political Forum, HLPF, held in New York in July 2022, was attended and participated by the chairperson, the head of secretariat, and 2 senior staff from the secretariat. The then Minister of Foreign Affairs, YB Dato Saifuddin Abdullah, went out of his way to promote SDGs as a member of parliament, as also as a minister. Next. The then Minister in charge of EPU, Dato Sri Mustafa bin Muhammad, or formerly known as Tokpa, played a key role in promoting SDGs, and Tokpa has taken up the role as advisor to PPMPL, and Datuk Sri Rohani has also taken up the invitation from PPL to be an advisor. Next. The 14th Parliament was dissolved to make way for the 15th general election. With that, the APBGM SDG committee ceased to exist, and a direct intervention by the Speaker of Parliament, the APBGM SDG activities were decided by the committee could carry on, but no new decisions could be made. At this time, PPMPL continued to play the role of what was before the APBGM SDG Secretariat. Next. After the GE15, the 15th Parliament was reconstituted, and APPGM was re-established via the application to the office of the new Speaker of Parliament. And unfortunately, both the previous chairperson and deputy chair had not stood for re-election in GE15. The committee was re-established, and this is the committee on the slide. Next. The current APPGM committee is on this slide. You see the number has increased. And next. Just to give you a quick methodology of what we do and where the money goes to, the primary approach is by a team of researchers conducting a qualitative-based research via focus group discussions with various grassroots communities at the selected parliamentary constituencies. The communities are listed as this. The writer calls this hit and run or guerrilla research because we don't spend more than 2 hours in one particular place. Next, please. So there's a pre-visit to the district officer, 3-day site visit, average of 10 focus groups discussions, a half-day interagency dialogue, and out of the 28 parliamentary constituencies last year, 26 district officers, regional residents were involved. 1-day capacity building is targeted primarily for civil servants and civil society members. Next. I'm from the finance, so I have to talk about this. The annual budget. During the pilot phase, we received 22 million ringgit in budget. We had 34 projects and we visited 10 parliamentary constituencies. In 2021, the budget was almost doubled to 5 million. Number of newly selected parliamentary constituencies added to 20, and the number of solution projects grew to 87. Another 27 parliamentary constituencies were added in 2022. The budget doubled to 10 million, and one of the selected constituencies was Bera, home of the then Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri. 197 solution projects were approved. In the fourth year, we had a further 28 parliamentary constituencies, including Tambun, the constituency of the current Prime Minister, also known as PMX. The budget allocation was again doubled to 20 million, and an additional budget allocation of 10 million was set aside for Kebun community projects. As we begin our 5th year of operation, the APPGM SDG Secretariat has received confirmation that our allocation for 2024 remains 20 billion for localizing, 10 million for Kebun community, and an additional 15 million in partnership with Yayasan Hazana. Please give Yayasan Hazana a round of applause. We have a target of 30 additional constituencies. I've got actually another 1.5 pages to go, but I just want to bring up this. We have changed governments 4 times. But the amount of budget received by APBGM SDG has gone up each time. So the work that we have done to make an all-party situation has actually succeeded. Because prime ministers have come and gone, the government has changed 2-3 times, but the support we have has increased. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony. So my key takeaways from your session is that it's quite important for there to be, again, an organization that plays a convening role, right, to bridge local communities, even to parliamentarians. And more importantly, the role played by a convening organization is that it needs to be impartial, so that it can work with bipartisan persons, right? Because if you remain biased over, like you said, different parties and different governments, then you can't continue to exist. So I think you've successfully done that, and that's why there's a trust with such an impartial organization looking at a very clear objective in terms of delivering the SDGs. Right, lastly, we'll go next to Alex Wang. If I can invite you to speak, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Hello everyone, we're happy to be here. I will try to be short and interesting, so I don't want to be the barrier between you and your lunch. So my name is Alex. I come from a global committee on social business for sustainable goals, which is chaired by 2006 Nobel Peace laureate Professor Yunus. And so in 2016, Professor Yunus was appointed by the UN Secretary General as a UN SDG advocate. And in the same year, during the UN General Assembly, he addressed the event, saying that he's seeing the most difficult way to achieve sustainable goals. A three approach. Number one, apply the methodology of social business. Number two, unleash the potential of young people. Number three, make the best use of the fast-changing technologies. So to follow up on his speech in the UN General Assembly, we work with the governments, civil societies, social business, and UN agencies to form this global committee. With, so in the very beginning, we have the support from the government of France, Luxembourg, and Nigeria, and more and more countries in the past few years. And so today I hear about SSE for many years, because many years ago I was some conference in Korea, in Asia, they call SSE, and this time I, thanks to Dr. Dennison, I got deeper learning. I do think because there are many, these sexy words in the social development sectors. Every time we got some new concepts, and there's many different wordings. And but this time when I learned the official definition of SSE, I think that SSE and social business are sharing definitely the same vision, but using different wording. But it's actually the same, because we put the social purpose before everything. Right? So we are trying to use the business wisdom to solve the problem sustainably. And so this time I also learned that we discussed about building inclusive community. And even for this session, we're talking about building inclusive community. I'm thinking we should ask ourselves why the community is not inclusive. And why it's not inclusive automatically? We should spend, the community is there, and then we should spend more time, more resource to build inclusive. And when we talk about this wording, we must think about that, we don't need to engage all these powerful people. I mean, we need to engage, but we never need to worry they are not inclusive there. For example, like, when we talk about Bill Gates, and Redalio, all these rich business leaders, they are everywhere, right? They are in all the powerful stage, and we don't need to worry about Joe Biden, Donald Trump. And the problem is we think about Donald Trump is not, it's too noisy, but not, it's not, we don't need to worry to include him. He's too noisy everywhere. But every time when we talk about inclusive, it means that, okay, there are some people left behind. So when we talk about SDG, we always talk about leave no one behind. There are some people left behind. But why they are left behind? This is a key questions we need to ask ourselves. The reason is that the current business model, the current economy model have something wrong. This is also Professor Yunus talked many times. The current economic model is that some powerful and smart people, they get the resources, and then the whole system, economy system, they go up to the top persons. So this the rich become richer, and the poor become poorer, and the gap become bigger and bigger. So this is a problem. So this is why that all these resources and powerful people get more and more resources, And all this, facing many different challenges, facing many difficulties, especially during the COVID, we found that the people who actually need vaccines, they cannot get vaccines, right? And if we look at other sectors, other industries, the same. We discussed in the past 2 days, the people who need money from the banks, they never get the funding from banks. And the people who actually don't need money, like they have a lot of assets, the banks, are trying to give money to them. So this is a problem in many industries, in many sectors. And the people we need to include in the community, they normally didn't get proper service. So there's so I think this is the solutions can be, the SSE, social solidarity, economy, and social business can be the solutions because there is some, unique. Number one, I think that we are providing some unique services. Number two is that we are making the solutions more sustainable. There are some one or two interesting stories I will share with you. Is that the most famous social business, Grand Bank, which is jointly won Nobel Peace Prize with Professor Yunus, is a role model for the social business in finance sector, like as we say that microfinance, microcredit. Is that when we talk about financial service for the poor communities, we actually if we really go to the poor community, in the past 50 years, the financial services they can get access is number one, the loan shark. They get really high interest loan in the rural community because the banks are not there. Number two, in these days, in many countries, including China, in other, they have this kind of government support, government initiative, which is no interest loan, really low interest loans. But the problem we found there is that all this for example, in China, I believe the same in other countries, all this low interest loan and no interest loans never reach to the poor people they really need. They go to the relatives for these people who control this company because the capital is too cheap. So some resource people are there, they are made up, looks poor, but actually they have resources to get this cheaper capital. But for this, so this is the only one solution left for these poor people is that this loan shark and this really high interest loan. So these poor families keep working very, very hard, but all the money, all the profit they make, they need to pay back to the loan shark. So this is why this kind of system came in poor. So when the Professor Yunus and also many other microcredit organizations in many countries, when they start to work on projects, so let's develop some service for the poor people that you don't need to charge that high interest, but you charge like maybe 10%, like 15%, but it's affordable for the poor people. But at the same time, it's become sustainable for the organizations who provide the service. So they run it in one village, in two villages, in three villages. They found, it works out. It works out. And Professor Yunus was very, very excited. It works out. So same time, the poor people get the money, they work hard, they sell the products, they can earn money. The situation become better. On the other side, the organizations who design this kind of finance market, they can get self-sustained. So Professor Yunus want to give this kind of model to the commercial banks. And the commercial banks look at that, no, we don't want to do that. It's too complicated, it takes too much time and resources. So this is some story 40 years ago. And Professor Yunus said that I have to buy my own because the commercial banks don't want to take the solution. And then so Professor Yunus said many times that because he never learned about finance and banking, so he doesn't know anything about that. So he decided to do anything commercial bank did. He will go opposite. So commercial banks go to the city, he go to the rural villages. Commercial banks, borrow money lend money to the men. They lend money to women. Commercial banks you know, like you need to fill many paper to go to the bank branches to fill it, and then in Grameen Bank they go to the staff go to your house. So in this process, and you know, like the Grameen Bank and also the microfinance models grows, you know, to more than 100 countries, and it is in the UN report in 2005, it says that there are 1 billion people get benefit from the model of microfinance. And in the year of 2006, that Nobel Peace Committee decided to award Nobel Peace Prize to Grameen Bank and also professionals. And also there are many interesting stories, like how Grameen Bank and how this model help beggars, like the people who are begging on the streets. And also there's many other stories helping the different models. So we think that, and I think that when we look at all these stories, and I believe there are many more stories from the social and solidarity economy organizations and also social business, is that let's think about some services which are unique, which are not available for these people we are thinking, when we are thinking to engage in the inclusive communities. And let's make sure that all these models are sustainable and not rely on donation or rely on some government policies. It can run in the market automatically, and through these models, so you know, actually all stakeholders get benefits and they can grow up. Yeah, this is the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I think that finishes off the panel quite nicely to say that not all stakeholders are born equal. Yeah, they are very different economic and social status. So, whatever convening role that we play or we want to engage them, must reduce the barriers for them to be part to have meaningful engagement with the stakeholders, and to make sure that no one is left behind, so that it's truly inclusive. So, with that, thank you very much to all the panelists. Another round of applause for them.